Buenos días y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome once again to Tiempo. I'm Joe Torres, and on today's show, Kolstein Music, a Long Island company that's been making high-quality musical instruments like violins and cellos for decades now has a Latino as the president and owner. Years ago, Manny Alvarez got his first job there making those instruments. Now the hardworking Latino has the top job at the company, and he wants to give more musical exposure to other Latinos. We'll talk to him about his new role and Latino outreach. Kolstein Music is a Long Island company that makes musical instruments, high-quality musical instruments like violins and cellos. The manufacturing company has been around for decades. Kolstein's previous owner, recently passed the baton to longtime employee Manny Alvarez. Manny is a hardworking and music-loving Latino who got his first job there when he was a teenager, and now he wants to share his musical appreciation with other Latinos. We caught up with Manny Alvarez about his new role and his new mission. Manny Alvarez, un placer, my friend. Good to have you here on Tiempo. How are things there at the shop? Kolstein's in Baldwin, correct?
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for having me. And we're moving and grooving over here.
You started working there when? How old were you?
About 17 years ago. I was 16 years old when I started here.
And what brought you into the shop?
To look for my first violin. Kolstein's was the place to go. Everyone knew it. And I wanted a violin from Kolstein's.
Your first job there was doing what?
Sweeping the floors and packing rosin.
With the hope and dream that one day, what?
One day I'll try and figure it out. I had no idea that things would evolve into what they evolved into.
And here we are, roughly 15 years later. You are now the what?
Owner of Kolstein Music. That's right. The company was founded in 1943 by Samuel Kolstein, and then later run by his son, Barry Kolstein, for 50 years. So it's a very old company and in the violin making tradition.
What did they see and find in you that gave them comfort in turning over their business and their name to a Latino from El Salvador and Ecuador?
Yeah, well, when you put it like that, it is very different. But actually, inside of our industry and our field, it's all the same. Music is a universal language. So really, it's about the love and the passion that I guess that they saw in music, that Barry Kolstein saw. His father passed away in 1999, so I was never able to meet him. But Barry tells me so much about him, and I know so many stories that I feel connected to Sam in some sort of way. But Barry Kolstein was a great inspiration and a mentor in my life, and that's how we kind of ended up here. So
you swept the floors, and now you're the president. Manny, what did you do in between, and what happens there at Kolstein's?
Oh, there was a lot of things that happened in between that any typical person goes through. From I lived in Hawaii to China and Hong Kong and Thailand. I worked with many different. I did schooling, and I worked on the missions field doing photography and for organizations across the seas, while at the same time working remotely with Kolstein's. So Kolstein's was always a part of my life, but I did a lot trying to explore those.
What was your expertise in Kolstein's?
Oh, I did every job that is in their industry. So
such as?
Restorations, rentals, customer service, you name it, I did it.
If I wanted you to build me a violin, you know how to do that?
My team and myself could, yes, together with help, yeah.
And how big is your team?
We're a team of 16 people right now.
But it's a shop where you sell high-quality, high-end stringed instruments such as violins, violas, cellos, y qué más?
And bass, the upright bass, like what you see behind me.
Part of your mission now, I understand, is that, especially here being on Tiempo, people seeing a Latino in a store on Long Island that sells violins and cellos and stand-up basses is to generate inspiration among other Latinos, correct?
That's right, yeah.
En qué manera? How do you plan to do that?
Well, there is an intermingle in between the two.
Tell me about it.
We had the great Nilson Mata here from Trio de Paz, and he had a drummer there, Café de Silva. And Café Cafe really worked amazingly and does that kind of music with Nielsen Mata, who plays the upright bass and can play classical pieces as well. There is definitely an intermingle between the two, but we are very passionate. I'm very passionate about spreading awareness among our community of the importance of music. Music is the universal language. Music is what connects all of us around the world, no matter where you are from, no matter what language you speak. So that's really important to it. And there's also some great studies done with kids learning music and how well they learn education in many different aspects and what development does in the brain.
But Manny, I'm not arguing that music is not fascinating and that Latinos are not interested in music. The question that I have is in the specific brand and type of music that emerges from a viola is typically not the experience of many Latinos. So how do you get them to appreciate that?
Well, they see it in some mariachi bands. I mean, the mariachis, they incorporate it very well.
Mm-hmm.
They really have an amazing time trying to discover new ways to use the instrument as well to create different sounds. Mm-hmm. So that's something that they could apply in their personal life and in their musical life.
It might be relatively inexpensive to buy a little cheap keyboard and get started, but to buy a violin or a viola requires a rather substantial investment, I would guess. Does that get in the way of Latinos being interested in what you have to offer?
I think that a lot of the times, you can find instruments very cheap on different areas online. But when they actually experience it and get an instrument that's not properly set up, that doesn't have good strings, that's fake wood, that's painted black to look like ebony, they bring it to us, they say, I don't understand, I can't make any music out of it. Then they get the education of what we do and how much passion we put into use real products and high quality products and the sounds that they produce. So I think that they develop an education of the importance of a high quality instrument.
What's the fascination, Manny?
Well, every aspect of it. A rental has such a different life than a restoration. A restoration can be something that you found in your attic that's falling apart, and then we put it back together, and then you get to hear the sound that individual instrument produces is really incredible. Each instrument has its own story, its own history, its own background, and I love learning that about each individual instrument.
Do you often hear that from your customers who walk in and said, my abuelo used to play this, I found it in the attic, and can you make it sound the way he used to make it sound?
All the time, absolutely. Yeah, that's something that they are actually transports them and brings them back to that time.
Tell me about your Musicians Relief Fund.
The Musicians Relief Fund is a public fundraiser that we did to put musicians back to work during COVID. Thank you so much to everyone who donated. We've raised over $20,000 and helped over 100 musicians, and we're still doing it worldwide from the Living Room series ongoing.
Manny, congratulations on your success there, and thanks so much for joining us on Tiempo.